Well, good evening again. Boy, you guys all look like you got color and everything else, so you're on the water today, right? Somebody said somebody got hurt. Not our group, right? No, not our group. Okay, well, I mean, you don't want anybody hurt, but it'd be extra bad if it was one of our group. Anyways, well, nice that you all are safe here, and looking forward to another evening together with you. What I thought I'd talk about tonight is risk factors in life. Everybody has a different personality. My wife and I are quite radically different in terms of risk. My wife would, her family was always comfort oriented. Her parents had 9-to-5 jobs, albeit good jobs. Her dad owned funeral homes, which didn't sound exciting, but he would just go put his time in and come back and put his time in. Cool, it's okay. So when I married her, I'm the opposite. I like to live on the edge. I don't like to plan. I like spontaneity. And so it's always causes a bit of problems sometimes because, I like to go, to go to Italy and not have anything planned when I go. And, better? Thank you. And so I just like to go there and wing it, hope you can get a hotel, hope everything works out. Because to me, that kind of adventure is much more interesting. Yes, there's been lots of times where we've slept in a car. She didn't like that too much. One time she was 5 months pregnant. And I decided that we're going to plan and just go, spontaneously just go. It didn't work too well that trip. I didn't plan that there was national holidays on that weekend and nothing's available and blah, blah, blah. So by the time we got back, she wasn't ready to travel for a long time after that. But the thing I like about living on the edge and the risk factor is you never know what's coming. To me, that's exciting. And a lot of you, I know, young people especially, these X Games and these, the people do these wild things. I mean, I enjoy watching that. My kids are into that. Not that they do it anymore much, but I mean, when it's skateboarding or they're snowboarding or whatever, I remember I'd go skiing. I'm a skier, skied since I was a kid, and my kids got into wakeboarding. And they always wanted, not wakeboarding, sorry, that's water, snowboarding. It's about as bad. I mean, my friend Russell back there, he wakeboards, and after I watch some of the videos they do, insanity, they're living on the edge. But anyways, so my kids are always talking about big air. And I'm saying, with big air comes landings. I don't think you think about that. You just think, how high can I get? And then you worry about the landing when you're in the middle of the air. And that's what I know. I used to go with them all the time. And I remember one time my son, his buddies are all talking about this big ramp, and they're going to go do this jump. And I says, you guys are crazy. It all sounds easy to launch, but, if something's off just a little bit and you come down wrong, I said, and it's not just fluffy, powdery snow today, it's ice. Oh, no, yeah, we're tough. So I kind of ski down. I'm sitting at the bottom of the ramp, and sure enough, my son goes flying off, and he's just way up in the air. And they got GoPros, so everybody's, that part's cool. You have to edit out the landing sometime. But anyways, so comes down, catches an edge, and puts his arm out, buries it in the snow. Next thing you know, his arm is hanging down here. So he dislocated his shoulder. So I'm trying to pull this thing back in a little bit on the hill, and obviously that's not going to work. And he's in pain. There's no question about it. So they have to get, we have to get the ski patrol, and they put him on the sled, and they take him. That's really humiliating for him. He wants his face covered and everything else. He's going down because he's too tough to be injured. So we get down the bottom of the hill. They try to get the thing back in there to the point where they actually wreck your shoulder. Because these are just medics, they're not doctors, and so then we have to transport them all the way down. I drive them they gave him some morphine or something to make him feel a little better, and we got all the way down to the hospital, and they had to put him out and work on your shoulder. And of course, then later he has to have a reconstruction of his shoulder because they wrecked it when they're trying to get it back in, blah, 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 blah. But, my kids have always liked risk. And skateboarding. I remember one time, my kids, they like skateboarding. It's kind of a grunge thing, and it was really grunge then. And they'd watch these skateboarding videos, and it's ollies and whatever. And my kids got so good they could skate along and jump the board on top of a picnic table, come off the other side, flip it a couple times, land it. So they got really good. But I didn't want them into the scene, so the only way to keep them home was, since I have a manufacturing plant, we started building ramps and all this kind of stuff, half pipes. So the front of our house just looked like what I say, Nome, Alaska. You don't know what that means, but it's just like a complete, the whole driveway is full of stuff. And I told him, you could go down to my plant and have the guys build whatever you want, but make sure it's painted so it's not a bunch of rusty junk in front of the house. So it was all painted red or yellow. And then they'd put it all out on the street, and every neighbor from 20 blocks around was right in front of our house. That's why we knew where our kids were. So they're getting really good at this sport, down rails and all this kind of stuff. And I remember my son, we wanted our kids to do mission stuff as well. So we lined our oldest son up to go to Belize, Central America, because I'd been there before with my wife doing mission stuff. And so we're getting ready to drive him down to the U.S. where he catches a flight, goes down with all these young people. And he decides to do a last little bit because he's going to be gone from his skateboard. So he's doing a last little bit. And I remember I'm watching him. We're just getting ready, loading the car. And he had braces at the time. And he's skating as hard as he can, jumps up, and he's going down this railing. And something went wrong. He's done this 1,000 times. And he face plants, and somehow his arms got behind his back. So he plaster. And I mean, his brace is cut right through his lips. And now he's got to go on a mission trip in a few minutes. So we're trying to decide, are your teeth loose behind the braces? So we're checking all this out. And within a few minutes, his nose and mouth is just like huge. And he's got to meet all these young people. So we made a quick decision. We're going to go anyway. So we did. And then other skateboarding things, they wanted to go to what's called Slam City Jam. It's like a great big hockey stadium in Vancouver. And you get 30,000 kids in there, and all the pros are coming in there doing all their stuff. And so I'm not going to have my kids in with all these, whatever. Not really, they're pretty wild crowd. So I went with them. And, I mean, every other parent came along. Their kid's not going to have a parent along for sure. So all these parents it's like a limousine service, by the thousands, kids being dumped off. Not me, no, I'm in there with my kids. And I remember, I'm head and shoulders above everybody else in there, and everybody just going crazy. And here I am just trying to stay stable, in this place. But I do like the risk factor thing. I like to live on the edge so that you never know what's going to happen next. And like I said, my wife's just the opposite. When we go on a vacation, if we're going to go up to our cabin or something, this is no word of a lie. She knows what the menu will be 7 days later. Right down to how many teaspoons of this she needs and everything else. I'm like, who cares? When we get there, we'll figure it out. No, it's got to be that way. But the thing I like about living on the edge like that, and the spontaneous of the whole thing is it's adventure. It's always adventure. If you plan too much, you have no venture. There's no adventure if you plan too much. And so I like it that way. And now I see that we've dropped the question mark here tonight. We had got Jesus, like we're asking a question. You got Jesus? Now, we're assuming and we're hoping that you got Jesus. You want Jesus. And if you do, it's going to be a life of adventure. That I guarantee. It's the most exciting life I've ever had since giving myself to Jesus. Because although it's not quite as crazy as X Factor or whatever, X Games or whatever it is, there's always something coming up that keeps you a little bit off guard, exciting off guard. And I could just tell you stories and stories and stories where, where I figure everything's going just the way I want it. All of a sudden something comes up and I realize this is a God moment. And so when you commit yourself every morning to Jesus and you spend time in the Bible, because I'll tell you right now, there are no shortcuts to Jesus. I've tried all the shortcuts. I've tried to come up with what is the shortest way to have a relationship with him? What's the least I can do to have a relationship with him? And then when I finally figured out it's all about time investment in him. We talked about that last night. So when I finally invested time in Jesus, and then I committed myself to be used by him, I got to tell you, I wouldn't want to live any other way. Because all these cool experiences happening, and you have to put yourself in sort of a risk mindset to get out there. And that's why with my kids, I wanted them to go do mission work. Because when you're in the mission field, when you're at home, everything's just kind of, it's all planned, it's all going normal, you go through routine and everything else. But when you're out somewhere out of your element, out of your zone, things happen. Yeah, sometimes bad. Like on one trip, my oldest son was shoving a wheelbarrow and trying to get it up over this hill, so he gets a big run for it. And he has a whole load of concrete on board, and he's going up this little hill, and the thing tips over, and he's trying to hold it. Well, it fires him right into a barbed wire fence, and he cuts his arm straight across here where the artery is. And he's still got the scar today to prove it. But goes all the way across his arm, like probably 9 millimeters, 10 millimeters deep. Gets to the artery, comes out, the barbed wire barb, comes out, goes right back in and finishes it. Now, like, what is that all about? And all they had a dentist along, but nobody else. So now they're out in the middle of nowhere. And so the only thing they do is take dental floss to sew it up. Well, I don't know if you know about dental floss. It's not really nice and slim. And so they sewed his arm up without freezing. So, adventure. But, today, a lot of people say, oh, what happened to your arm? He could go have plastic surgery. He's in Loma Linda, but no, this is cool now because he's got a story to tell. And he said, came out, missed the artery, went right back into everything else. That's adventure. And I'm not saying that you get wounded every time you work for God, but I tell you, you put yourself in a situation where you depend on God. And I remember my kids, they're in college, and I'm saying, you guys got to go take a year off and go do mission work somewhere. Oh, they don't want to. They just want to get their degrees done, get work and everything. I said, no, you got to take a year off. So I kept pushing until they're starting to plan this whole thing. And before long, they're talking about places they could go as a student missionary. And then they're at Walla Walla College, Walla Walla University, and the mission program there was saying, we haven't had anybody in American Samoa for years, so they don't really know how to deal with student missionaries or anything else. But hey, we need to reopen that work up. Would you take some friends along? So they got 3 friends, and so 5 of them went down to America Samoa for a whole year to teach. And so, but you know what they were thinking about? Surfing. That's all they talked about for weeks ahead of, we're going to surf, man. And they first go to Hawaii for orientation. It kind of made the trip sort of fun. And they bought their surfboards in Hawaii. They already knew what they wanted, so they all bought surfboards and cases for them, and they paid their $80 to put them on the airplane, and they get to Samoa. Guess what? America Samoa doesn't have any surfing. And, Western Samoa apparently does, but America Samoa doesn't. And so they get paid $200 a month. Well, my wife and I could subsidize their income. It'd be no problem for us to subsidize their income. My wife says, we got to help them out. And I says, no, I think let's just let them. So back up. They're all about surfing. So one of the other kids they chose to come along with them, he's talking surfing too, and his dad's a pastor. And his dad phones me up, and he says, Herb, I got a real issue with these kids' motive. And he says, all they talk about, they don't talk about mission work. All they talk about is surfing. And this friend of mine, this pastor friend of mine, his name's Frank. I said, Frank, that's what they're talking about. But you get them over there, out of their element. I don't know what's coming up on them, but I said, I'll guarantee in the first weekend they'll be living on their knees to get through this whole experience. Sure enough. Because he said, yeah, but I don't like this. I said, forget the surfing. I can tell you one thing. There'll be no time for surfing, probably. So they get over there in the first weekend. My kids phone me up. Dad, Mom, we don't know what to do. They broke all 5 of us. We all got to go preach at a different church, promote the school, and do music. And they said, we can't do that. And I said, well, you're going to do it. They said, well, we can't. I said, the Holy Spirit will do you for it. We'll pray for you. They says, no, you don't get it. I said, it was hilarious. This is all on Skype, right? We lined up with Skype, so we're sitting there looking at the panicked faces. They said, if we could all go together, it'd be one thing. I said, you'll be okay. Well, they got through the first weekend, and they promised that they'd be teaching primary school, and so it doesn't sound as bad. And they put him into high school. And there's no textbooks, and there's no curriculum, and there's nothing. They had kind of a turnover of teachers, and so now they're supposed to take this over. Well, they're so panicked because they don't know what to teach. There's no textbooks even. So my wife panics too because she's an educator, so she goes to her school and says, look, I got to take 10 days off. I'll pay for the substitute teacher, and I got to get books. So my wife just has a panic attack, phones, and all these schools start shipping in boxes of books, and we have 1,000 pounds of textbooks and sports equipment and everything else. We pay for all the shipping over there on the same flight she's on, and then she flies down to Samoa and then teaches how to have classroom management and curriculum planning and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is those kids were on edge for a year, and they came back. They're completely different. Exactly what I expected and hoped would happen actually happened. And before they went down there, because I'm trying to tell you guys this is what you should do. Live on the edge, live excitement. I mean, that's what it's all about. And so before they went down there, especially my oldest son, he was starting to take after me, major in social life and minor in education. And so, in fact, I took him out of school one time for 6 months. I said, you're coming home just before the spring quarter, which is the fun one. That's where the weather's nice and hormones are flowing and, everything. And so I said, you're coming home. He says, why? And I had my brother's company hire him, and he says, well, I'll make him a quality control guy. I says, no, you're going to give him the worst job in the place. This is a lesson. So my brother hires him to shovel gravel and sand for 6 months. Well, by the time he was done that, he was ready to go to school. But the point is, when they came back, man, their maturity level and their headspace and their dependence on God, it was just like a completely different, and their grades went through the roof right away. It was the best experience ever, and it was adventure, and it was living on the edge. Because the thing is this, you can live a comfortable life and just get into a routine and do the routine. I am not that way, I can tell you right now. But if you put yourself on the edge, get out there where the action is and just let it unfold, because God's in control. If you've got Jesus, don't worry about it. It is incredibly exciting, because the Bible gives us a commission in Matthew 28. It says, go ye therefore. When it says go, that go can mean lots of things. But this one, it means for sure. Go means get out of the church. Get out of the church where you are. And then get out there in the world. And that's where you hang out with people. And that's where the adventure is. And that's where the action for Jesus really happens. Now, a lot of you guys know I like to sport fish. I've probably already talked. I'm going sport fishing tomorrow. Okay, some people think it's barbaric, and I always defend myself. But one of the ways I defend myself is this, is I come up with fishing analogies. There's fishing for real fish, and then there's fishing for men. Jesus says, I'll make you fishers of men to the fishermen. And even after they're fishers of men, they went back and fished anyway. So I got lots of arguments for it. But anyhow, so I like to use analogies. And some of you may have heard my analogy on this one, but here's how we do it sometimes with kind of like evangelism. We want to be fishers of men. I mean, it's exciting, right? Everybody wants to. I mean, it'd be cool just to have somebody come to Jesus. So what we do is we come to church. We talk about fishing for sometimes years, talk about it. But then sometimes, we're going to do something. But here's how we fish. We don't want to leave the church. I mean, it's dangerous out there. It's water out there. So we all bring our fishing poles to church. We bring our lures. And we talk about it, and we show the gear we have. I mean, I know what it's like, a fisherman. You open your tackle box, you can talk for 3-4 hours on what's hot, what's not, and and everything else. So what we do is we don't want to leave, like I said, go out there. So we open the windows of the church, and then we start throwing these attractors. We have Vegalinks with 3-prong hooks on them. We have Stripple chips, flatfish lures with hooks on them. And we have beasts. I mean, that's a big attractor for sure. Fish love that, with hooks on them. So we start casting these things that we think will get people to bite. And we cast till we have tennis elbow. So we use the other arm, and you become ambidextrous with the fishing. But once in a while, I kid you not, to get a bite is exciting if you don't get them. And in fact, when my kids were young, and still a bit that way, my oldest son, he's like me. He can fish 10 hours in the rain and not quit. My youngest son is like 10 minutes without the rain and is ready to quit. So it's always been a bit frustrating. You go out trolling on some beautiful lake, and it's not about killing fish. It's about getting you outdoors. And 15 minutes, are we ready to quit? No, but I had a lot of little tricks. One of them was when we're trolling, the lines are out the back and we're putting along in a motorboat. What I would do is, he's always like this with his pole. It's like if he did get a bite, he's not ready anyways, but whatever. So whenever that pole is stationary for a second, I would take my line, it's out there too. I'd lower the tip of my pole and I'd bat his pole with my line on my pole and right straight back up again. Oh, I got a bite. I could get 10, 15, 20 minutes out of him every time. And after a while, the wolf effect did happen, cry wolf a few too many times. But the point is so that's what we do. We fish, we spend all this time casting, and someone gets a bite, and it's exciting. Oh, I got a bite. We all like that. We like to, and then once in a while, somebody hooks a fish. You actually hook them. But if you don't know what to fish, here's what you do. First of all, you hook the fish, you say, got one on. Fish on is the common word. Fish on, you holler it. And everybody runs over to that side of the boat because this is exciting. And the whole boat's just about ready to turn over, but it's going to be okay. And so, but here, if you don't know what you're doing, here's what they do. And I've taken lots of people fishing. And they hook a fish, and they just reel the snout out of it. Just fast as they can, rip the hook right out of the mouth. You know, because sometimes we think, we got a bite, we hooked them, we got to get them as quick as we can, doesn't matter what. Just download everything we know in like 21 days, and then we expect to land them. And you tear the hook out of their mouth. But once in a while, someone hooks them, and they know what they're doing. So they start to reel this fish in, and the fish gets closer to the boat, and then they go, oh, I don't know, the church, closer to the church. They go, I don't know about this. And then they turn around, they run. Now, how many here fish? Okay, we got a few guys, good, that are willing to admit they're barbarians. But anyways, what you do is you have drag on your reel and you let them go. And there's nothing sweeter than that zzz as the fish runs. And then you let them go for a while, and then you slowly bring them back. You know, reel them up, and they might take 2, 3 runs. Good, let them run. Then you finally get them back to the boat. And they're right up to the edge, and by this time, the whole boat, oh, yeah, we just about got them. We get a net. Here's what we do. We scoop them in, and in they come into the church. This is an analogy, right, into the church. But here's the problem. They don't really fit in. They're flopping all over the place. They don't mesh. They got slime going all over the place. So we all know what we do as fishermen. We get the clubs out and pound them to submission. Now, that's tongue-in-cheek. I can get away with it in Australia. I've done that sometimes in North America, this particular analogy. They don't get it. It's like, it all sounds bad to me. But that's what we do sometimes. And we do it all from the inside of the church. When it says, go ye therefore, it means get out of the church, hang out with people where they are. That's the most fun part of ministry for me. Traveling around speaking to the crowd is okay. But what makes me lay awake at night is hanging out with lost people and then seizing on the opportunities to share my testimony with them and then see the lights come on. It is awesome. Outreach, that's what outreach is. Go out, outreach. That's the ultimate experience. And if you've got Jesus, that's the natural thing to do next. And when you go out into that territory, everything's exciting because you're not in your common ground now. I love hanging out with people where I'm in their turf because they're most comfortable there. I'm less threat to them if I'm in their territory, if I'm in their environment. And that's where things happen. Like our own church I belong to, really cool church. Wasn't always big. So you think, oh, yeah, you're lucky you got a big church. No. You know, we decided 12 years ago, we decided outreach is where it's all at. And so we started doing all the outreach we could, just helping people. It's not about numbers. It's not about how many baptisms, although that follows. It's all about how many people we can help and how many people can we impact. And the more we did this, the more God blessed us. And the more he blessed us, the more we could do. And the more we did, the more the blessing. And you know what I mean? It was this upward spiral of events. And we just finished a year and a half ago building a $15 million outreach church. You know, we didn't have $15 million. God just provided it. We bought a piece of property. We had a church. It would hold 300 people. We're doing 2 services, and we're still plugged. So we bought a piece of property for $1.1 million. And then and it was available. It was on the market, right on the main highway where I live, Trans-Canada Highway it's called. So we buy this property. And we're barely into it for 3 months, and all of a sudden the city decides we need a park and ride right there. They said, so we're going to take the land away from you. We'll give you market value. Well, what's market value? So some guys in our church took it upon themselves to do the negotiations, and they made it tough on the city, which was good. Because they want to say, well, you paid that, we'll give you $1.5 million. Well, that sounds like a really good deal. But our guy said, no, we're done. So 2 years later, we settled for $7.5 million. So we had a nice chunk of money there. That's a God thing. But if you're willing to risk, if you're willing to step out and do, you don't have to worry about the facility size. You don't have to worry about that. So we got into all sorts of programs that we're doing in our old church first. We had a bunch of computers. We had people donate them. And so we ran training. We're very much into single mothers, helping single mothers. So we ran computer schools, and we give them a certificate. And so all these mothers would come in, and we had teachers that would teach them in the evenings, and then they'd wind up with a certificate. That's one program. We started doing a breakfast club. Every single day of the week, we'd go to the local public school, and a whole group of ladies in our church and guys would go in there and serve a full breakfast every single morning to the kids who had nothing. And that began to open doors of communication. So then when we had our nice Easter and Christmas programs, the parents of those kids are getting the free meals. They're at a minimum coming to this. Then we started doing other things. We started doing things like, we call it minivans for single moms. That's how it started. So people would donate their vehicle. Few guys would go, even work outside, fix the vehicle up, find a worthy single mom, give it to them. Unbelievable to see some broken-hearted single mom just barely making it to get a vehicle so she has some freedom. And then we started another one called Oil Changes for Single Moms. And we're once every 2 months we advertise that for single moms, sign up. We change your oil. We fix your car up if it needs some stuff. Anyways, make a long story short, God knew we couldn't keep doing this out in the rain or borrowing, garages from schools to do all this stuff. So in our church, not only do we have a full glass sports court, solid glass, everything, basketball, volleyball, that kind of stuff. We have a climbing wall, a massive climbing wall in the church. But we also have a 3-car garage in our church with hoists and everything, with state-of-the-art, all the best tools, the whole 9 yards. And we don't have to find mechanics. Everybody in the community who's a mechanic wants to be part of this program anyways. So now when we have single mom oil changes, we'll have 80 mothers come on a Sunday. And the youth, like you people, the car comes in, someone ushers the mother inside, and then from the community, we get people that do nails. What are they? Pedicures or whatever. Pet his feet, right? Whatever. It's manicure, thank you. So I don't know if they do their toes, they do their fingers, whatever. So anyways, there's professionals coming from the community, and there's hair specialists that come in because they all want to be part of this. Most of what we do is done by the community. And then we have programs for all their kids so that they can be away from the kids for a little bit with climbing walls and jumpy things, those, like little castles that the kids are jumping in, all that kind of stuff. And they have basketball classes and all sorts of stuff going on. So the mother's in there. She's completely pampered. The youth are washing and vacuuming her car out. It goes into the garage. If there's anything like light bulbs or anything needs, it's all replaced by mechanics, not only our own mechanics, but mechanics from the community. Full oil change. Then we have a part in our church set up where it's full of clothes, women's clothes. They go in there, they find nice clothes for the mothers. And so when they walk out of it, they look hot, they feel hot. They get back with their kids, their car looks good, it's all oil changed. They got a thumbs up that everything's working on the car. I tell you, it's amazing. But what's really cool is, 11 years ago, we started, and we call our program AOK, Acts of Kindness. So 11 years ago, we started rebuilding people's houses in the community. So we would put the word out, nominate someone that's really in need of having their house worked on. You guys are going to do that tomorrow. Same idea. Except it just grew really quickly. So people would nominate people from the community. Sometimes it's someone that's just absolutely broken down. They lose a child, they lose a spouse. There's lots of people, lots of names come in. And we have a committee that goes through all these names. And then we go and attack their house. And we have people in our church that have timeshares here and there. They send the family off to some timeshare for 10 days to 2 weeks. Meanwhile, our church goes in there and guts that house, tears walls out, drywall, redoes everything on the house, roofing, siding, rock work, finish work. And guess what? How much do you think it costs us to do a $200,000 to $250,000 upgrade on their house? Usually nothing. Why? It's because the community is because we're on national television all the time. National TV is always watching what we're doing, and we're on the news all the time. So the point is we literally have plumber contractors and plumbing supply houses and electrical contractors and drywallers and finishers and companies that supply furniture and we have some really good interior designers in our church, but we get interior designers from out in the community that want to help. So we might have 60, 70 people for 10 days just wailing on this house. So when it's done, it is unbelievable, fully furnished. And if one of the kids is into sports, we have someone that has connections. So, we have the Vancouver Canucks. It'd be like, one of your rugby teams or whatever. So some of the stars sign jerseys. They put it in a glass box and it's in the kid's bedroom, all this kind of stuff. It is so fun. It is so on the edge. And then at the end of this 10 days or 2 weeks, we have the thing like you see on TV. Move that bus. So we bring a school bus in. The people are brought in. They're blindfolded. They're standing behind the bus, and the bus moves, and all the media is there and everything. And they look, and they cannot believe, that's my house? And then we do things like if they're barely financially making it on their house, we go and negotiate with the bank for them and say we got to come up with new finances. We come up with better terms, lower interest. The bank's not going to sit there and say, we're not going to help you when all this is going on in the community. I'm just saying this because it is so exciting being part of a church that's actually doing something. And every time we think we can't maybe afford to do this, it doesn't matter. We just plow ahead and do it. For example, we had $11 million cash. We're not that big of a church. We're growing like unbelievable. I think we have 800 and some members now. The church holds 900. So we have $11 million from selling our old church, from the profit on the sale of the other property, and we raised another $1 million out of our congregation. And I know this all sounds, if you're from a small church, it sounds like this is impossible. No, I'm sorry. Little churches all over North America, and our pastors down here in Australia a lot sharing. Little churches, all you have to do is show an effort. And God says, well done, you good and faithful servant, you church. I'm going to reward you for what you're doing. Tomorrow, I'll give you a bigger responsibility. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about I own the cattle on 1,000 hills. The gold and silver is mine. So we go to build our church, and we wanted all these elements in there for total outreach. And so we have 11 million bucks, but it's going to cost 15 million to build. So we get as far as we can go with 11 million, which certainly gives us our sanctuary and our foyer and all of our classrooms upstairs, but not our full gymnasium with all the workout equipment and all that kind of stuff. And so they have a church board meeting. What do? Do we borrow $3 million? That's a lot of money. It's $18,000 a month payments is what it's going to cost us. Well, what my vote was? No, I didn't have enough faith. But a bunch of the other people that didn't seem to care, they voted to say, let's go ahead. Well, I thought, well, everybody votes, we're going ahead with this thing. So now we're going to have an $18,000 a month mortgage payment, plus we're going to have the overhead of this huge building. So how's that going to work? Pastor's not worried. He's a visionary. And so we're not even into this thing for a month, and we get a phone call from a Sunday church. And they said, we'd like to rent your sanctuary every Sunday. Well, what are we going to charge? I don't know. We don't know what to charge. And so we said, well, what do you think it's worth? I wasn't doing the negotiation. We had some other people. They said, well, we figured that $11,000 a month would be fair. So I said, sure. Yeah, that'd be okay. Well, they were in there for 1.5 months, and now they need 2 services, 900 each sitting. That's how quickly they grew. So they came back and says, we now need 2 services. Okay, I think they're paying around $20,000 a month now. And so the thing is, so our mortgage is paid for. Now here's one we didn't anticipate. Because we got this beautiful glass gymnasium, it's all solid glass, like huge, high. All the movie industries would drive by because we're on a main drag, and they'd all say, wow, that would be hot. We have shot over, it's between 30 and 40 movies now for Disneyland movies and Hallmark. And we have Universal Studio and everybody else want to use it, but we're very particular at what kind of movies are shot in our gymnasium and in our foyer. And here's the deal. They pay us $25,000 for 1 week. They come in Sunday night and they're out by Friday noon. We didn't even know they're there. But when you go there in the middle of the week, which I'm in there sometimes, some of these movies that you see in Hallmark and Disney and all that, I mean, they have the whole foyer. Well, I remember one of them I went into, it's a movie about some dog. I don't even know what it is, but anyhow. So they got all these tents and everything like you're at a dog show with picket fences and grass, and some of the tents have dog food in them, whatever. I mean, it's all about setting it up to look like you're at a dog show. And then you go into the gymnasium, that's all set up, and they're shooting all these movies, and we've had some major actors in there on these movies. And are we short of money? No. And then the other thing is we're Hollywood North, Vancouver, where I am in Canada. We're called Hollywood North. It's like billions of dollars of movies are shot in our city. Well, when they want to shoot movies, there's a cafe down the street that everybody wants to use in their movies. I don't know what's cool about it, but it's about a block and a half away. So they came to us and said, we'd like to give you $1,000 a day if we could just park our rigs on your parking lot in the middle of the week. Fine, we'll take it. And so during the week, all the time, because they're shooting all around that area, and so, we got all these movie trailers sitting there, at $1,000 a day. It doesn't even affect us. And so God is good. But, if we wouldn't have stepped out and decided we're not doing the status quo, we're not going to just live life boring, we're going to go out and we're going to be adventurous for God, and even if we don't have the money, we're going to do it, and we're going to start these programs. You know what? When you start these programs, I went to Lucas Oil, a major oil company. I says, hey, why don't you guys pitch in, give us all the oil? No problem. You need filters too, don't you? Yeah. Well, Fram oil filters, we deal with them all the time. We'll get them to do all the filters, and then you need auto parts. Yeah, well, we'll get this. I don't have to sell it. They all want to be part of it. So they say, okay, we'll give you $3,500 a year worth of auto parts, and everything after that is at cost, not even wholesale, at cost. So it is so fun living that kind of a life. So you can do it in and around your church, or you can do it outside. And I love adventure. But sometimes I have to admit I don't capitalize on the opportunities for a while. Just one experience. How many have been to Vanuatu? Few people here, yeah. Well, I think it was 2006, they phoned me up, said, would I come to Vanuatu? And I thought, I don't have time to go to, I don't even know where Vanuatu is, like couple of years later, they phoned me up, said, would you come to Vanuatu? And I thought, oh, by now I heard there was a Survivor program, which I've never seen, but, something happened on Vanuatu. I still don't know where it is. I didn't even take the time to look. So I say no for a number of years. And finally, Russell, when was that, 3 years ago? 3 years ago, whatever it was, yeah. So Russell, he handles all my stuff in Australia here, and harasses me the rest of the time. So by the time I go home, I'm happy to be home. No. Anyhow, so Russell says, no, we're going to go to Vanuatu. And I'm thinking, well, whatever, okay. So we go over there. And I'm thinking, as we're flying over to this island, it is islands, and I'm thinking, what am I doing this for? I don't know anybody over here, and we're going to be doing, I'm going to be speaking over there in this big hall, and, it's probably a waste of time. I'm going to be honest. That's what I'm thinking. So we get over there, and so my motives are really skewed. I'm sorry. But when I heard Vanuatu had fishing, I said, can you line up a boat? I'll pay for it, a charter boat, so I can go fishing. Because I thought, well, if everything else flops, at least we got fishing. I mean, it wasn't quite that bad, but, whatever. And so we get over there. Well, I tell you, it was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. I could tell you stories for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, but some of them, I didn't know that every one of the DVDs that I produce over here, somebody's reproducing these things by the tens of thousands, and they went over all the islands in Vanuatu of all the denominations, Church of Christ and all these different things. So when I get there, everybody knows me, but I don't know a soul there, and so anyways, we have these meetings, but that wasn't the cool part. The first night we're there, I'm sitting there in the front row, and it's island time, so it's supposed to start, I don't know, 6 or 7 o'clock or whatever it was. And I'm thinking, well, like I figured, nobody's going to come. It's empty. And then by 7:30, which is way late, the place is packed and people are bringing their mats and everything else. And so anyways, we start the meetings. But before we start, I'm sitting in the front and I'm looking around, I've never been a place like this before. So I'm looking around and I see this well-dressed guy back there. And there's some people around him that are all dressed. This guy had a suit on and a tie. Well, it's really hot over there. And I'm thinking, what's he doing in a suit? So I asked him, I said, who's that guy? He said, oh, you don't know who that is? And I said, no, I've never been here before. How would I know? And so he said, well, he's the commissioner of labor for the country. I says, Cool. What's he doing here? Oh, you didn't know? No, I don't know anything, And he says, well, he'll be speaking after you're done tonight. And I says, what's he speaking about? Oh, you don't know about that either? No, so I have to wait it all out, because now we're ready to start. I do my thing, and as soon as I'm done, he gets up, tells the story. I'll tell you the story, because the next morning, Russell and I are in his office in the government, and quite an experience. But here's the story. He's got a secretary who's a Seventh-day Adventist. And she had given him my DVDs, what was it? 2 years or so, what was it? Remember? 2 years earlier? Something like that. And she had pestered him. Did you watch those DVDs yet? No. Did you watch the DVDs yet? Unbeknownst to her, he had thrown them in the garbage as soon as he got them. And so she keeps bugging him, and it's obviously not going to work. So then before we go, and this is amazing, I don't know if they got money, if they don't have money, whatever, but they decided they needed to raise money to pay for my air flights. I don't take any money. I don't take any money for any ministry, even the sales off my books. I think I mentioned it here the other night. It's just like it goes into account. We use it for charity. We use it for more publications, but publishing, whatever else. I don't want to take money for ministry. I just take travel expenses, and that's it. And so anyhow, so we hear this story. They have to raise $2,000 for hall rentals and whatever all they had to do. And so, or was it $2,500? I think it's $2,500. Anyways, each family had to come up with $500 Australia, which is 80,000 VAT2 or whatever they call it. These people can't afford anything. The people that committed to raising $500, one woman, the secretary, was making, I think I heard, less than $300 a month. Her husband's disabled. They got 4 kids. She's supporting the whole family on that. And stuff isn't exactly cheap there. And so now she's got to come up with another $500 above taking care of everybody. Make a long story short, she tells what happens. It's a few days before they have to get their, it's like a couple days before they have to turn their money in. Where are they going to get this money from? So she doesn't have a dime. So she phones her friend up, a prayer warrior type, and they take the bus and they go out somewhere and they pray for the afternoon. And as they're coming back on this bus, they're sitting in the front seats of the bus. And she tells us a story. And just the bus driver and those two, they didn't know at first that it was just those two because they weren't looking around. But anyways, so they come to this bus stop, and all of a sudden, this envelope just kind of gets thrusted in her lap. And so she's looking at it, and she thought, well, that's weird, and it's an old used envelope. So they don't open it there. They go back to her house, finish the bus trip, go back to their house. But when this happened, she had turned to her friend and says, where'd this come from? I don't know. Is that yours? No, I don't know where it came from. They look around. There's nobody on the bus. And nobody had walked out the front. So they go home to open this envelope. They open the thing up. Guess what's inside? 80,000 VAT2. Cash. And she just, we're talking to her and stuff. She's acting like, oh yeah, God's so good. And I'm thinking, I'd be a whole lot more jacked up than that. But whatever, because that's their faith. And so the next morning, she brings the envelope of money in and tells all the other women in the office of the Commissioner of Labor. And they're all standing around and they just can't believe this story. And so then in comes the commissioner. His name's Lionel. He comes in and he says, what's everybody doing? Oh, everybody's showing what happened to Carol. What happened to Carol? So he asked her, well, we're raising money to bring this guy in from Canada. And we had to come up with this money. And all of a sudden my money just showed up in my lap. Yes, he says, what? He couldn't hardly believe this whole thing. She hands the envelope. He opens it up, fans the stuff out. He says, this is uncirculated money. In fact, it still's got the printing smell on it in an old envelope. And I'm like goosebump city, like I can't believe this whole thing. And so he says, what is this all about? She says, we're bringing this guy in. Who? And he says, well, how do you know him? Well, he's the guy I gave you the DVDs to. Give me another set. He goes home that afternoon and watches till 2 a.m. And in that series, whatever it was, I'm pounding about spending an hour a day on the Bible. What does he do? He says, that's it. I'm going to do this. So when he's up front, he's telling you a story that he decided to spend an hour a day in his Bible to see what was going to happen. And when he's from up front, he's telling what happens. all of a sudden his life begins to change and all these incredible opportunities happen. Like he's appointed to be on the United Nations thing of 127 nations to stop child slavery in the next, 5 years or whatever it is, 10 years. And he says, we can't stop that. But I told the entire delegation, I stand in for God. I will pray. We will get slavery stopped if we have God. So this guy is now witnessing to everybody. And he becomes a witnessing machine. And he's up front preaching like about what's happened to him already in this 2 month time period. And so he's just like unbelievable. So he says, you're coming to my office tomorrow. We go down there. I meet all these pastors of different denominations. It was embarrassing. He says, you guys don't spend any time in your Bible. You got to be like this guy and spend an hour a day. And we're like, okay, So anyways, all these things just happened. He says, now, when everybody else leaves, so he's got all these people lined up to meet us. So Russell and I are sitting in the office there for all morning, meeting all these different people. When everybody's gone, he says, okay, here's the deal. I gave your DVDs to the Prime Minister of the country and the Deputy Prime Minister. You know what they're doing now? They're both spending an hour a day on their Bible. And he says, maybe I shouldn't be saying it on here. Anyways, make a long story short, I have a copy of their 10-year plan, and it's going to end with In God We Trust. And funds are going to be flowing to God's work. Anyhow, so I had no idea this. It's just miracle after miracle after miracle. And I'm sitting there and I was saying no for all these years. And God was just saying, wake up, moron. You wouldn't say that, but whatever. Just, what's wrong with you? And so one of them, we go out fishing, but the day before we're going down fishing, I decided to take a walk down there and ask him how the fishing is. And I talked to somebody that's used to what's going on. I said, well, how long on a charter did you do? I said, 6 hours. And he says, you won't get anything. You won't get a thing. Nobody gets you need 9 days. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, that was a good one, $500 down the tube on that one, but I'll go anyways. So then two Vanuatu guys said they want to go with us. Cool. So they're going to go. And then the morning of, the one guy says, hey, my son's never been on a boat. Can I bring my 7-year-old son, or 6 or 7, whatever he is? I said, well, sure, why not? And then the fishing boat captain, he says, I'm not taking any kids because if they get sick, we have to go back. I said, if we have to go back in, we go back in. Who cares? So I knew we're not going to get fish anyway. So we head out there in this boat. There's the two Vanuatuan guys and their son, and then Russell and I. We head out there, and the waves are 3 meters. And we're just getting hammered out there. And I'm used to the water. I spent my life on the water. And so we're just getting banged around. And we're trolling for 2 hours, no bites. As soon as the guy sets the poles out, he goes in and sits with the boat captain. So we know they're not going to get anything. I mean, if he's on edge, he's going to be just like, okay, when's the next rod going to go? Well, there's nothing. So after 2.5 hours of just getting slogged out there, waves coming over the side and everything, I'm sitting on the back and the side of the boat, and I look over, and it's little kids there. And these people are dirt poor. They can't afford to buy fish, and they can't get any around there. But fish is incredible for them. So this little kid, Russell and I are sitting here, he's over there. And he just folds his hands like this, and he says, Dear Jesus, please help us to get some fish so we can have some food. And that kid barely said amen, and the first line went. Just screaming out. And of course, the guy comes flying out of there like he can't believe it himself, and so we hook in, I land a mahi like that, and then barely get mine and get a couple pictures. The next one goes out. Russell takes, and we just light our lines up. Well, what's that all about? And these guys are, see, we told you, this is the hottest fishing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, right. And so we head back in, and they got a custom. They put up a yellow flag if the boat is catching fish, and to brag about it. And they go all along Port Villa, or whatever this place is called, all along the wharf to show off. Well, they aren't even going a half a knot, and we got to get back, and they're just poking along, and the little yellow flag is flying up there to let know we got fish on board. Anyways, all these incredible miracles. So one more quick, because I got to end here. But anyways, I have to fly back from that trip, Australia here, Vanuatu, and then back home. And I'm out in Alberta in the middle of the winter. I was here in your summer, our winter. I'm building this concrete plant out there with my guys. And it's minus 35 plus a wind chill factor on that time. It is just horrible. We work if you haven't been that kind of weather, I'll just explain a little bit. You go outside, and we got balaclavas on. I mean, the only thing is exposed is this much of your face. And yet you got to put bolts and everything together, so you can't do it with gloves. So you take them off quick, put the bolts together quick, and then get them back into your gloves, and then take the wrenches with your gloves on, and the next bolt. Anyway, so we go outside, and this howling wind at minus 35 would hit your eyes, and it burns. Cold air burns. And then eyes start to water, and they immediately turn into icicles. So now you got icicles hanging off your eyelashes, and that makes your eyes burn more. So you get more water, and before long, you got icicles that long hanging off your eyelashes. So you got to, and then of course you're breathing through a balaclava, so the moisture, so you got icicles hanging down here. So every 20 minutes you have to go in to thaw out. So it was just horrible. And I come back from all these cool experiences here, and now I'm stuck out there in this freezing cold trying to get this stupid plant done. And so anyhow, we're out there for 8 months, but that was the worst part of it. So I'm back there, and I went into the office and, took my clothes off, my balaclava and everything off, and gloves off, and I'm just sitting there. I'm totally dejected. Like this is just like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this in the wintertime? What a stupid idea that was. Anyways, so I'm sitting there in office, and I thought, well, might as well check my emails as I'm thawing out. So I check my emails, and I get this email. Don't know who it is. Open it up. And here's this email, and the woman says, just thought I'd let you see the finger of God. And I thought, okay, finger of God, what's this all about? Oh, first of all, when I clicked on it, it took like 5 minutes to download this email. Find an email so I could read it. Finger of God, what's this all about? So I continue to read. This woman says, my husband has never wanted anything to do with Christianity. When you were coming out here to Vanuatu, I kept pressing and pressing and pressing. You got to come and hear this guy's from Canada. He finally just had it. He says, no, don't even bring it up. I am not going to this thing. And this guy's a camera buff. We got to know him later. Anyways, so anyways, he comes out of his office the first night I'm there. Comes out of his office in downtown Port Villa. And he looks up in the sky and he sees this amazing cloud. And it is amazing. It's red. It's long and skinny. It's got an oval near the end, and then it's got a sharp point heading towards the ground. So he's looking at this thing. He said, I've never seen a cloud like that. He goes back into his office, gets his camera, takes a picture. And he thought, weird. It's pointing. So he starts to follow this thing. I have the photos. Some photos, if you want to look at the other side of the cloud, it's not that easy, right? If that's up at 30,000 feet or 10,000 meters or whatever else. You're not going to just walk over here so you can get a picture of it this way. But in his photos, this thing's all different angles. This side, and it gets darker and darker out, and this cloud is still pointing. And this is the whole story in there. Her husband was convinced that this is pointing somewhere. He follows the cloud and photographs it the whole way. And you know where it led him? To the meetings. And his wife who had given up on him, she got the whole testimony. She's sitting near the front. She just happens to glance around. There's her husband standing in the back, just looking, trying to find her. And so that was it. The finger of God, he said that was the finger of God led me to come to these meetings. He came to all the meetings, and we noticed this guy around there, picture. And of course, Russell's taking all these pictures too. So we go to this dinner at the very end of it. They had us for dinner and everything else. And this guy's taking pictures, wanting pictures of us with him, everything else. He was the guy. The finger of God led him to this thing. I don't know about you, but if I chose to have lived my life on a back street in British Columbia and just pursued business 100%, so it's just the same old thing over and over and over, do my work, whatever else, I would have missed out on so much in my life. Unbelievable, the difference of taking Jesus, getting Jesus in my life. I love the adventure. I love the stuff that comes along. I love the divine appointments which happen all the time. Just before Christmas, we'll try to wrap it up with this one. Just before Christmas, because it's kind of cool, I go down to Rosario Beach in Washington for the weekend with my wife, because her sister and husband, their church was having a weekend at this marine station owned by Walla Walla University. I went to school there one summer myself. Anyways, so we go down this beautiful place on the ocean. Not beaches like you have. They're gravel, but whatever. So we go down there for the weekend. And it's Sabbath afternoon. It's really cold out, so everybody's staying in the cabins around fires and stuff. And I decided I'm going to go for a walk, so I put my nice clothes on and outdoor clothes, and I go to walk down the beach, this rocky beach. And ahead of me, I see this family sitting on logs. There must have been, I don't know, 10 or 12 of them. Kids, parents, whatever. So I walk by them. Hey, how you doing? Just keep walking. I got my hood up because it's real windy there. And so then I get a little further, and I see this older lady walking towards me. I shouldn't say older. She's probably mid-70s. Okay, so whatever. But, I mean, that's what she probably was. She's coming towards me, and I'm a friendly guy. So I said, hey, how you doing? She says, oh, how you doing? And I said, oh, great. Pretty chilly day. And she says, where are you from? And I said, oh, I'm from Canada. Oh, really? And I said, well, where are you from? I'm from Wenatchee, which is like 8 hours drive from there. And I says, oh, what are you doing over here? Oh, we're visiting my daughter and family here and all that. Oh, well, that's cool. And she says, let me ask you a question. What do Canadians think of Trump? Well, that's a good way to start a conversation, I get. So I was talking to her a little bit about it, and she said, well, everything's just going sideways. And I said, yeah. Well, we know it's going to go sideways anyways. The Bible tells us that. She said, oh, you're a Christian. I said, yeah, I am a Christian. And she said, so am I. And she said, but, my life is just totally messed up. And I said, like, why? What's wrong? She says, well, for starters, 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I wasn't supposed to live 2 months. And so, of course, you live your life like it's ending. And so for 2-3 years, I'm living like my life like it's going to end 2 weeks from now. And now I'm okay. But I blew all that time, and I made all these decisions back then thinking I'm dying. And, oh, she said, it's just a complete mess. I said, well, God is good. And she doesn't want to leave, so she keeps this conversation going, and we're standing there for like 20 minutes. And then so finally she sits down a log, so I'm standing up talking to her, and we go on, and I just share my testimony. I said, well, I just got to tell you, I know what you're going through. I mean, life sucks. There's no doubt about it a lot of times. And I said, my life, it was ridiculous. I went through a midlife crisis, in fact, and told her the whole testimony like I did tonight. So she's listening to all this thing, and she's, she says, I like to help God. I says, what do you do? She says, I write rap music a lot of times. And I'm thinking, really? Rap music? She says, oh, yeah, I love all kinds of music. And I says, so your rap music, how does that go? Well, you want to hear some? I said, yeah, I'd love to. So she starts thumping her foot, and she starts slapping, and she's got a real groove going, And all of a sudden, she just lets into this Christian rap that was phenomenal. And it lasts like 3.5, 4 minutes. So it's not, and she's got all the lyrics down, and it's just jiving. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, whoa, I can't believe this. So she rips off one rap. She want to hear another one? Oh, I said, absolutely. So she rips off another rap. She said, but I write other kind of music too. And I said, well, I'm a writer too. But I said, what else you got? Oh, I write kids songs. So she started singing me kids songs, and they're great. And I'm like, I can't believe this. Have you done any of this stuff on YouTube? Yeah, I'm okay. Like I'm ahead of my time, I think. But anyhow, or behind my time, whatever. So I know about YouTube. So anyway, says, have you done anything on YouTube? She says, I've heard about that. What is that? I said, you got to be kidding me. Nobody's filmed your raps and stuff? She says, no, who would want to know? I said, oh, for crying out loud. I said, get your kids to film you. Well, nobody has a camera. I said, you don't need one. You got these. They're called smartphones. I think they're dumb sometimes, but whatever. They're smart. They can film you, and if they post it on YouTube, you would be viral overnight. She said, well, who would want to listen to me? I says, with that kind of stuff, you'd be the coolest granny around. And I says, I am not kidding. I'm not patronizing you. I said, I am telling you that stuff is cool. You've got to get on there. In fact, if you can, dress up really hip, like you shouldn't be dressing up. She says, like what? I says, ask your daughter, but just dress hip. And she says, well, that sounds kind of fun. I says, I'm kidding you. Here's my business card. I give her my business card. I said, I want to hear from you when that's posted because I want to repost it myself on Facebook. So she says, well, that sounds kind of cool. She says, but who wants to listen to me? And my life is just horrible. I can't even begin to tell you horrible. I says, you know what? God needs you. God wants you. That's cool stuff you're doing. You've got to do that. So we're talking a little bit more. Meanwhile, a little grandkid comes up and says, Grandma, you want a sandwich? She hands her a sandwich. And then she says, oh, we'll get him one. I said, no, that's fine. I don't need one. So they go back. But the whole family's watching me engaging Grandma. And so, I glance over there now, and then they're all like, so I know this is not, they're wondering, what's Grandma up to, with this guy on the beach? And so I'm talking, and then they're getting a little bit nervous now because this is going on a long time. So then Finally, the woman says, I really need prayer. I think I would really like it if you'd pray for me. And I said, I'd be happy to pray for you. So I went to put my hand on her shoulder, and she reached up and grabbed my hand. Remember I told you one the other night. So here I'm holding her hand now, and I start to pray. But since I got a hood on, I probably should have taken off whatever. Right? So I got my hood on. They can't see what I'm doing, but I'm holding Grandma's hand. And so as I'm praying, I hear crunch, crunch, crunch in the gravel a little bit, and the daughter is kind of walking towards, and so I just looked a little bit, and she's kind of trying to figure out, how do I interpose in this? Like, I mean, I don't know if my mother's whacked out here or what, but she's holding hands with this guy. So anyways, so we're holding hands, and I'm praying with her, and I'm rebuking Satan on her behalf and everything else, because she's got all these problems. And so then I finish praying, and I look up, and the daughter's halfway between us, and she kind of looks away when I look up, and I says, don't worry, I'm just praying with your mother. And she looks at me and she's, that is fun. I love that kind of stuff. It's spontaneity. It happens all the time, those kind of things. I love that kind of stuff. I haven't seen her post her thing yet, but you know what? Doesn't matter. Like I said the other night, 2 things. If I be lifted up, Jesus says, I will do the drawing. You don't have to do that. I'll do it. And secondly, the Holy Spirit will teach all things. Oh, before I left, she says, would you ever consider coming speaking in my church? I said, oh, yeah, what's your church all about? She says, well, technically, I've been to a lot of churches in my town. But she says, I could probably get 5 or 6 denominations there. Right now, I'm going to, I think it was a Nazarene church. She says, would you come down and preach? I said, be happy to. Just give me an invite, and I'll be down there. It's like, God, Jesus, expect something to happen. Step out in faith. Step out of your comfort zone and let stuff happen, because it will. I tell you, young people, just trust me on this one. I will guarantee with every cell in my body that if you decide to give Jesus a serious chance, spend a serious amount of time every day with him, and then you move ahead in your life from there, you are going to have 1,000 times more exciting life than you ever would if you pursued just a normal life. Give it over to him and begin to live.